Dear friends, I am here with the second part of the lecture series on how to crack the NET and JRF from history. In this part, we will discuss on the 10 different concepts and issue. So, let us start the subject. The first topic is the Khadir Beth. Khadir Beth is basically an island in the run of Kutch. The site Dholavira that belongs to the Harappan period is situated here. The site of Dholavira was basically discovered by J.P. Joshi in year 1967. J.P. Joshi was the director of Archaeological Survey of India at that time. He was also credited for discovering the site of Surkotda that was near Bhuj in the same estate Gujarat. Surkotda site is famous for the horse remains. Although the sites were discovered in the 1960s, but it were excavated in the 1990s when the R.S. Bist became the director of the Archaeological Survey of India. Dholavira site is a very different site. The first characteristic is it is one of the largest site in India, and this is the only site that is situated on the Tropic of Cancer. Constructional remains of a stadium, or you can say the open theatre, has been found over here. The water harvesting and reservoir is a very famous characteristic of this site. And one more thing that should be mentioned is the large letters of a script, Harappan script, has been found here. Generally, the script is found on the seals in a miniature form, but in Dholavira it is found on the wooden block, so in a large shape and size. So Dholavira is a very important site that is located in Khadir Beth, and Khadir Beth is an island in the run of Kutch in Gujarat. So with this, I move to the next concept or topic, that is Ghod. Ghod is basically a tributary of Bhima river in Pune. The site Inamgaon is located on the bank of river Ghod. This is basically a post Harappan site and famous for the variety of burials found over here. Not less than 243 burials have been found so far, and the varieties are very different here, like urn, pit, extended and complete burials have been found here. Friends, one more thing we should know about the Inamgaon site is here the evidence of Malwa culture as well as Jorve culture has been found. But all these burials are belong to the Jorve culture. These cultures are very important concept also for the students of history. The two basic characteristics of this culture is, first, the geographical location, and then second is the earthenwares. So on the basis of the wares and the geographical locations, the cultures are differentiated. One more important thing about the Inamgaon site is one man buried in a four-legged clay jar in the courtyard of a 5 roomed house has been found over here. And this is the largest house in the site. So historians reconstruct that might be this house belonged to an aristocrat class person who got privilege to be buried in his own house at his death. So these are the some important features of the Inam Gaon. Although it is not possible to summarize the whole characteristics of Inam Gaon site in one slide or in one lecture. So I'm just giving the basic ideas and the information that could be helpful in the NET JRF examination. One more thing I want to add, dear friends, is that whenever you look a word is underlined, that denotes that you have to take the word in your notebook and have to do some research on that word. Like here, the tributary. What is the real meaning of tributary and how it is different from the distributary and subtributary? So this is your kind of task from my side. With this note, I want to move to the next topic. This is basically the class distribution in the early period. Friends, I'm not sure about the if the questions being asked from this topic or not, but I want to share this information with you because it will help you on the level of understanding. It will help in the manner that there was a same kind of classification or class distribution in the both northern and southern region of India in the early period. When I say early period, I mean just after the creation of the Mahajanpadas in the 6th centuries BCE. Here you see the 3 columns: the landowner or headman, the plowmen, independent farmers, or landless laborers. So in southern region, the landowners were known as the Vellalar. It might be possible my pronunciation is not accurate, but whenever you pronunciate the word loudly, you become familiar with it. So when it comes in your paper or in your examination, it will easier to recall it. So I prefer to speak louder the words, even I do not speak in a or pronunciate in a proper manner. So Vellalar, the Ujawar, and the Kadashyar or Adimai are the words used for the landowner, plowmen, and landless laborers in a respective manner. And in the northern region, for the same, Gram Bhojaka, Grihapati, and Das or Kamma Karaz was used. So the sole purpose of sharing this information is just the terms were different in the northern and southern region, but the classification was more or less same. With this information, I will lead to the next slide that has information about an important site situated in Tuticorin in Tamil Nadu, also known as Thuttukundi. The site is Adicannallur. This is the earliest megalithic site in Tamil Nadu and known as the cradle of ancient Tamil civilization. Cradle stands for a baby bed that can swing. So by this we can say Adicannallur is one of the earliest site situated in the Tamil region. Friends, I am very much sure that Ned is going to ask a question from the Adi Channalur in the year 2020, and I will justify you by justify this my statement by two or three different arguments. The first is, here in 2005 around 169 clay urns were found. Clay urns in which the human skeleton was stored has been found, and it was supposed to be sent to the Beta Analytical Center in the Miami, USA for the carbon dating. But because of some departmental issues, it was not sent to USA for about 10 years. So in 2015, a PIL was filed in the Madras High Court by some volunteers of an NGO. By taking note of that PIL, Madras High Court asked ASI for the reason. So, after so much kind of debates and discussion and all that halla bolos, the report came in the February of 2019, and the date came was about 3800 year. So earlier we were believing that in the Tamil region the Sangam period was the oldest civilized period, but by getting the latest evidence the time goes far earlier. So this is the first reason why the location Adichanallur is a very important for the next exam. The second reason is, in the budget speech of 2020, Honorable Finance Minister N. Sitaraman announced that Finance Ministry will create 5 archaeological on-site museums in India. Luckily, Adichanallur get the place in those 5 sites. So this is the second reason. The other sites that are on the list for on-site museums are Rakhigari, Hastinapur, Shivsagar and Dholavira. The third reason why Adichanallur is important is that here the 6th phase of excavation begins on the 25th of May 2020. It was scheduled to the 15th of March 2020, but because of the COVID-19 crisis, it is delayed by about 2 months. So these are the some reasons why I am claiming that Adichanallur is going to be on your paper for NET JRF. So with this information, I am going to the next topic. Arikamedu. This is also known as the Paduka by Roman literature. This is a coastal settlement excavated by Mortimer Wheeler in 1947 to 1950. Mortimer Wheeler was the person who claimed that the reason of downfall of the Harappan civilization was the Aryan invasion theory or Aryan invasion. So, taking apart, the Arikamedu is a massive brick structure site. The structure is supposed to be a warehouse because the site is a coastal settlement, a coastal site. So the reason why I put this topic on on my discussion is that Arika Medu is the site where the evidences of Roman trade is very rich. The evidences are very rich uh, here, that claims that the trade between the Indian region, or say eastern uh, India, the Asian continent, to the Rome, to the Rome, was very uh, flourishing, very good in nature, because the amphor, the Eretine ware, the Roman lamps, glassware, etc., has been found over here. As you are seeing in the figure, the slide, the wares uh, shown on the figure are amphorae, and the ware in the lower figure is Aretine ware. Aretine is basically a place in Italy. On that basis, some wares were also made in the India. Periplus of Erythraean Sea and geography by Ptolemy also mention about the Portuca, that is Arika Medu. Here again, I am just informing you the terms or the words that are underlined are important for you. So do not ignore them. Please take note of them. Note down on your notebooks. So with this, I am moving further. 6. Schools of Buddhism and countries. In this slide, or in this concept, I want to add some contemporary information. I want to add that the countries which follows Buddhism are basically following which school of the Buddhism. As you all are aware that Buddhism has at least 3 schools: the Hinayana or Theravada, the oldest one, the conservatives, the Mahayana, and the Vajrayana. Here one more is mentioned, that is Navayana or Bhimayana. It was basically started by Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar when he proselytized in Buddhism. So in contemporary scenario, Cambodia has the maximum percentage of its population that follows Buddhism. On the other hand, China has the maximum number of people or the maximum population that follows the Buddhism. And maximum followers are of Mahayana school. Hinayan Theravada is popular in the Southeast Asia and the Sri Lanka region, while Mahayana is popular in the eastern region, especially in the China, Cambodia, Thailand, Japan, and so on and so forth. While the Vajrayana is famous in the northern region, the Tibet, the Himalayan region, Mongolia, and Russia. So this is a kind of geographical classification or distinction according to the classes. So this is a very important question from the perspective of the NTA net examination. So different kind of questions can be created from this information. So please look over it with a very rational approach, with a very logical, in a very logical manner, and it will help you. So with this information, I'm moving further. Movinder is basically a term firstly mentioned in the Tolkappiyam, an epic of Sangam literature. The term Movendar stands for the heads of three ruling families, the Cholas, the Cheras, and the Pandyas. The word is mentioned in the Megasthenes Indica as well as in the edicts of Ashoka. Friends, but in the Western works of that period, that is the Periplus of the Erythraean Sea and the Ptolemy's geography, the term Tamilakam or Tamizagam has been used for the heads of the three ruling families collectively. So here also three or four questions can be created from this information. Like, what is the meaning of Movendar, or where it was first mentioned, or what is its real meaning, and what is the term used in the Western literature on the place of Movendar, and so on and so forth. It depends upon your logical ability to decide what type of question can be made upon. So, as you are seeing the figure on the slide, there is three kings are standing with the flag in their hoisting flag in their hand, and on the basis of flags you can say that who belongs to which kingdom, because we all know about the insignia or the symbols of the kingdoms. So the Cheras has the bow and arrow, Cholas has the running tiger, and the Pandyas have the insignia of a fish. So on that basis you can decide the most left king is from Chera, the middle is from Chola dynasty or kingdom, and the right one is from the Pandya. So these are the some important information, and from by this kind of discussion, I'm just supposing that you will change your approach towards your uh, study of history, and you will understand what kind of attributes you have to be improve in yourself before appearing for the NET JRF examination. So you will make sure that these kind of terms must be included in your study, because they are very basic terms and things that are mentioned in the class 6 or 7 NCRT books, and NET will never tolerate if you are not aware about these things. So you must care for that. Okay friends, the next thing is the Barigaza, Bargosha, Bharukacha, Bharuch, Bhadoj or Broch. These all names are stands for one place, that is today's Bharuch, situated on the bank of one of the distributary of Narmada river in Gujarat. This is a very ancient and antique site. According to Puranas, in Askand Purana, Rishi says, or says Bhrigu came on tortoise here. You all know tortoise or kurm was the second in the list of the Vishnu's Dasavatar. The first was Matsya and second is Kurm. So even on that basis, you can realize that it is a very old site. It is also claimed that it is the second oldest city of India having continuous habitation, first being Kasi or Varanasi. It is known as the gateway of India from the period of Greeks, Romans, Arab, Dutch, Portuguese, Britishers. They all came here and dispersed in the whole subcontinent. It was ancient naval junction, shipbuilding center, and port city. It was naval junction because it was a meeting point between the Western world and the Eastern world. The Western was the Arabs, the Persians, the Romans, the Greeks, the Britishers. They all came here from the West. On the other hand, the people from the South China Sea region, the Southeast Asia, they also came here. And in the Bharuch, they did trade and commerce work. They did bartered their products and did exchange. So that was a naval junction, and a very large number of people were coming here with their products, and thousands of ships were standing here. So it turned into the ship repair center also, and that turned into the ship building center in course of time according to the needs. Bharuch also became a port city because there were transactions of goods and wealth. So it is also a very vast topic. So I'm just giving a basic idea and creating a curiosity in you to just go and understand the basic details of the Bharuch. Bharuch is very living place since early time. So it is also very important from the perspective of the exam. The next is the early southern state capitals of India. We all are aware that since Sangam period there was three prominent states in southern India. They were Cheras, Cholas and Pandyas, and they were mostly dependent upon the trades, external or foreign trades. So for that ground they created a center on the ports or on the beach of the ocean or Bay of Bengal was that was in the east, and in the Indian Ocean was in the south. So you can witness they created two capitals. One was inland capital to govern the people, to administer the people. On the other hand, they created port capitals from where their economical issues were built. So Cheras had Vanchi, that is claimed that today is Karur, although it is debatable so far, as their inland capital. while Muziris or Mujiri was their port capital. Chera was situated in the today's Kerala and some districts of Tamil Nadu also. The Chola, who has basically two lineage period. The first was in the Sangam period and the second was in the early medieval or the medieval period. So during the Sangam period, their capital was inland capital was Urayur or Urayur, that is near Trichy, today's Trichy, while their port capital was Puhar or Pompuhar. In the second lineage, which came in power during the 1000 AD, Thanjavur was the inland capital, while the Puhar remained their port capital. The third kingdom, that was Pandya, who were ruling in the southern Tamil Nadu, today's southern Tamil Nadu. Madurai was their inland capital, while Kodakai was their port capital. With this, moving to the next slide, it is talking about the relic casket. Relic casket is basically a small box made up of wood or soil. This is a box created to put the bodily remains of Mahatma Buddha after his Mahaparinirvana, and it was put under the soil. It was covered with the soil, and then a layer of mud brick was added on that, on the top, in a manner that it created a hemispherical structure over the ground or over the land, and that is now known as the stupa. So a relic casket is the basically term used for the box in which the bodily remains or the things Buddha was using, like his bowl, were kept and put under the soil, and a mound was created that is now known as the stupa. And after the Mahaparinirvana of Mahatma Buddha, even his disciples were also taken as were considered as the real arihant. So they were also considered as the Buddha. Buddha is basically a adjective quality of the person who knows everything, who is well aware about himself. And the term anicca is used in the Buddhism, that nothing is permanent. So all those who realize that everything is temporary were Buddha. So even the person who came after Mahatma Buddha and his disciples when died, their bodily remains and their things were also put into the relic caskets, and the mounds were created, and that were known as the stupa. So these are the some terms and concepts and ideas that I wish to discuss with you, because these are the different kind of characteristics, or say the features of history that plays a big role in deciphering that a student is good in that subject or not. So, by knowing that, you could be considered as a good student of history. So, if you're not preparing for such exam like NET or CSE prelims, even that, then this lecture would be insightful for you and beneficial for you. So, I advise you to please be tuned and discuss such things with us. I will feel very happy if you will add something more in these topics or suggest me some more concepts and idea to discuss with you. My sole purpose is to help the students of NET to what to study and what not to study for NET and JRF examination. And that will be decided on the basis of their nature of questions are being asked and what is the syllabus. So with all these discussions, I am just resting here by this lecture, and after 2 or 3 days, probably 3 days, I will come with another 10 different terms and ideas. So be happy, be healthy, and stay tuned. Thank you so much. Suggestions are welcome. Thank you. Thank you again.